Make your marks.
You're listening to the Pullbuoy podcast.
Hello, Steve here with another Commonwealth Games Memories edition of the Pullbuoy podcast. And for this episode, we're going international. My guest is Australian, he's speaking to me from the US, and if you like your swimming podcasts, you'll know him well. So let's get into it. Okay, we're back talking Commonwealth Games and getting some more reminiscences. And if you listen to any swimming podcasts, you'll know this man's voice, but we're flipping the tables and he's answering the questions today. Brett Hawke, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
Well, as I say, we're talking Commonwealth Games and your recollections of the two that you went to. But before we dive into the detail, as an Aussie, how do you see the Commonwealth Games? For us Brits, you know, it's a chance to get the rivalry up between Wales and England and Scotland and what have you, and three per nation means we get to see loads of our swimmers. But as an Aussie, you know, how do you feel about them?
Mate, I love them. I love them to death. I mean, I grew up on the Commonwealth Games in Australia. It was always a big deal, and it was probably, you know, a bigger deal even than any other major kind of event for us in a way, because the swimming, I mean, the Olympics always seemed like an exclusive club of world athletes, where the Commonwealth felt a little bit closer to home. It just felt like we were battling against, you know, our brothers and sisters. So there was always more of a personal relationship there to the Commonwealth Games, and it seemed like a fun event too. It seemed like you wanted to go there and have fun, whereas the Olympics seemed like a pressure-packed situation, you know. But I just remember growing up and watching it. One of the early memories for me is kind of a Lisa Curry, you know, from back in '91. I think she dominated. I think the Commonwealth Games back then were in Auckland.
Yep.
And that's a real big memory for me, kind of watching that on TV and seeing these swimmers become household names, but having fun doing it, you know. And it just became a really big thing growing up in Sydney of like, I want to do that, you know, like I'd love to get there. I don't know if I can get to the Olympics, but man, I'd love to get to the Commonwealth Games, you know.
And is it you know, something that gets more kind of coverage, more interest in Australia than say a World Championships or a Pan Pacs or something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely second on the list. You know, you got your Olympics, which is the pinnacle, and then it's a close second to the Commonwealth Games, and that kind of overshadows everything else. World Championships is of interest to those people that are interested in swimming, and swimming is a big deal in Australia, but it's still not, you know, full mainstream, I'd say. But like Commonwealth Games, the whole of Australia stops to watch, you know.
Yeah, and I think that shows in you know, people's decisions this year to perhaps focus on that more than Worlds, which have been jumping around. But let's talk about your experiences of them then. If we start in Manchester in 2002, how did you travel to those games? I mean, did you go with expectations of what you might achieve? Were you just, you know, happy to be on the team? I mean, that was a superstar era for Australian swimming, you know, when you look at the people who were on that squad. But, you know, what was your mindset heading to those games?
Yeah, well, even just kind of a step back from that, I remember trying to qualify for my first major long course team was 2000 Olympics, and at that stage I was 25 years old, so I was kind of an older athlete. I'd just come back from America. I had a lot of experience. I've been training in Australia, but I wanted to make this Olympic team, and I did. And then after that, I made a decision to go on for the next 4 years. So part of that 4-year plan was certainly the Commonwealth Games a couple of years later. And in 2000, I made a decision kind of to myself. I made an agreement to myself that I was not going to miss another Australian team for the next 4 years to get the experience I need to solidify myself as the number one sprinter in Australia and get to the next Olympics and perform better than I did in Sydney, because I finished 13th in the 50 and I was very disappointed. And I said, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to be one of the best swimmers in the world, the best sprinters in the world. And to do that, I have to dominate domestically. And that was kind of my personal decision then. So 2002 Commonwealth Games was actually kind of almost in my prime, really. If I look back, I was, you know, 27 at that stage, I believe, and feeling really good, had good experience, very confident in myself. Swimming was just starting to click for me, like I was really figuring it out. You know, I was at that Commonwealth Games, I was up against a very formidable opponent in Mark Foster, who's one of the most dominant sprinters in history at that point. So I knew what I was up against, but I was very, very prepared physically and mentally for that competition.
So that obviously, that's the 50 free that you're talking about principally. You did the 50 fly, I think, earlier in the competition with the 50 free, towards the back end. Were you someone who liked to get a swim in, during the lead up, or were you happy to sit and do your own thing and wait for your sprint at the end?
I preferred to get a swim in. The 50 was always at the back end of the meet, so I'm sitting around for 5-6 days before I even get a race. So to go to the Commonwealth Games and have a 50 was kind of a hit out. The fly was a hit out for me. I didn't consider it to be one of my main events. I don't even think I shaved down for that. I really just went in there and had a hit out and got wet and kind of got in the competition, and that was good. It was good physically and mentally to do that. But I was never the guy that was going to be on that 4x1 freestyle. Although that did change in 2006 when I actually worked my way onto that relay team. We can talk about that later. But I was never good at the 100. It was just the 50. So that was where my focus was. It was all about getting on the podium in the 50 freestyle at that event.
So that event rolls around. Just looking here, you were the fastest qualifier from the heats, and then set a games record in the semi-final. So you must have had your tail up. Must have felt things were going your way on that first day.
I felt unbeatable. Honestly, I felt like I was going to win the gold medal. I felt very confident. I saw the other guys walking around the pool deck. I was not intimidated in the slightest. I felt very strong, very confident, and everything was everything was falling into place, like you said. Fastest qualifier, breaking the games record. It was all falling into place, and then something crazy happened on the night of the final.
I mean, what do you remember about that race? I mean, it was very, very, very close. Just 1/100th between you, who took the silver, and Roland Schoeman, who took the gold. But what do you recall about the race?
I remember everything. It's very vivid in my memory. This is the race that stands out in my history as the most memorable race. Actually, I remember walking outside of the pool about 2 hours before the final and just going for a walk in Manchester and taking it in. Actually, I went to a park. There was a park pretty close by, and I remember walking and taking in air and just feeling the moment, feeling very good and very confident, and then telling myself, all right, when you walk back, it's time to win. You're going to go back and you're going to win the gold medal. So for me, that was a big deal. And I remember being in the ready room, and this is where it all just went to hell. But being in the ready room, I had a suit, I had a pair of goggles, and I had a cap. And back then the suits took a little while to get on. You had those big long full body things with zips, right? And so you wanted to leave yourself a good 30 minutes to get this thing on, and I never felt comfortable with the suits themselves. I always felt like I was at the mercy of them a little bit, and but I wanted my suit tight. I knew I needed it tight. It was the 50 free, so it needed to be really pressed against my chest, really compressed on my legs, which then, I was a bigger guy, so it took work to put on and get up. And so I started putting the suit on, taking my time, feeling good, feeling relaxed. Right before we walk out, we're in the ready room, right? And there's other people, other racers in this ready room. So it wasn't just the men's 50 freestyle. I think they had a women's event lined up. So it's kind of an open ready room. There was bags all around the ready room. And so I remember asking Ashley Callis, who was in the final as well. I said, Ash, can you just do my suit up at the back? We're about to walk out in a couple of minutes. I remember he grabbed my back and yanked at my zip. And as he yanked, I felt a pop, and the suit popped. And I just heard Ashley say, "Oh, shit." And I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "Your zipper came off." Like, it literally came off. There's nothing I could do. So I've got this open back suit that is completely broken. And they're like, "All right, line up. We're about to go out." And I'm like, "Oh, you are kidding." So I went into a full panic. I mean, never before have I panicked like this. I ripped the suit off, and I'm running around the ready room completely naked, looking for my bag. Because all the bags looked the same, and there's about 30 bags in this ready room. I forgot where my bag was at that point because I'm panicking. I'm digging through my, people's bags, and I can't find I'm literally naked, bending over. No, all modesty had gone out the window at that stage. I'm like, I need a suit desperately. I hadn't planned for this, so I eventually I can't remember exactly who that was, but somebody gave me an extra suit. It was a pair of legs, so I actually went from a full body suit to a pair of legs, unplanned. I whip this thing on as fast as I can, rip it on. It's not perfect. It's up. It's done. Okay. I get back in line. They're like, all right, great. We're going to walk out. We can't wait any longer. I go to put my goggles on, and I'm shaking because, my adrenaline is pumping. I go to put my goggles on. My goggles snap in my hands. And I was like, and I remember Roland actually turned around and looked at me. He's like, you've got to be the unluckiest man on earth right now. I was like, you've got to be shitting me. So here I am again now, looking for a pair of spare goggles. So I'm in the Commonwealth Games final, got someone else's suit on. Someone throws me a pair of goggles. They actually left me. They walked out to introduce the swimmers. They actually left me behind. I'm in the ready room looking for a pair of goggles, and I hadn't walked out, and I'm the fastest qualifier. And so what they did, they paraded us down the pool. So they paraded the guys all the way down the pool. They're doing the introductions. I get a spare pair of goggles, and I run down to the end of the pool. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm here now. I made it. They just introduced me. And I go to check my heart rate. My heart rate's about 220 beats per minute. And I'm like, I got to hold my breath now. Like, I've got to get from one end of the pool to the other. I'm like, there's no way I can hold my breath. My whole race plan's gone out the window. So I had about 30 seconds to compose myself, get some deep breaths, try and relax for a second and just accept what happened and put it out of my mind. And it was literally 30 seconds. That's all it was. And we get up on the blocks, and I remember taking a big, deep breath and thinking, I hope I get to the other end. And raced all the way to the end and got beaten by 1/100th of a second for the gold medal. And I honestly didn't have any regrets at that stage. I put it down to just a comedy of errors. But I was happy I got the silver medal in the end. But I really, truly believed if things hadn't have gone that way, I really would have won that gold medal. I do believe that.
So, I mean, looking back at it now, do you look at it as a missed opportunity because of the circumstance, or do you look at it as, a terrific result given the adversity that you'd been through in that, 3 minutes before the final?
I look at it as both. See, I've got the silver medal hanging up over here. I've actually got the cap that I wore. I've got a picture of myself, and I've got a picture of Roland with his gold medal, me next to him, and Mark Foster with the bronze medal. And I don't look at it with any regret. I look at it as it is what it is. That's the way history wrote it. And I'm certainly proud of that silver medal, but I do know this. I would have won that gold medal. I do know that. It's just that's the way it is. I was in really good form. I never felt better. The circumstances were just crazy. It wasn't like I was nervous. My zipper broke. And that created the situation where I was in a panic, But you know what? It taught me an interesting lesson. From that point on, I always packed 2 suits with me. Like, I had it with me. Even all the way up to kind of walking out to the blocks, I still had an extra suit with me. I still had an extra pair of goggles with me all the time. And from that moment on, it gave me comfort to know that would never happen again. And it never did. Never broke another suit again. Never broke another pair of goggles. But certainly taught me a lesson for sure.
Yeah. We don't want it to happen. Lightning strike twice with that sort of thing. Certainly. Yeah. Outside of your own swims, was there any kind of anything in the pool that stuck in your memory from that competition? I mean, people will remember Ian Thorpe's 400 free world record. Particularly I think from Manchester. But any swims that stood out from you?
I don't remember Ian Thorpe's world record because the problem with me is I travelled with Ian Thorpe for 6 years and I saw that man break world records left and right. So for me, it was just another swim. But I was very spoiled, very lucky to be part of an Australian team for 6 years with the likes of Grant Hackett, Susie O'Neill, Kieran Perkins, Michael Klim. I mean, all these legends, truly legends of the sport. Patria Thomas. So I got to see world record after world record just being on that Australian team. It's very hard for any one particular swim to stand out at a Commonwealth Games necessarily. For me, just a series of great performances, one after the other. So I was just very proud to be in that era. I knew too. Looking back, you look at it and people think, "Oh wow, what a time to be on that team." I knew it at the time. I was pinching myself all the time that I was part of this team that was just. I knew it was one of the greatest in history with the likes of Grant Hackett and Ian Thorpe and those guys. So you just felt very fortunate to be watching race after race,
Yeah, the thing that strikes me about Thorpe's world record was that just before the meet, the Australian, I don't know if he was the head coach or the performance director, Greg Hodge, had come out and said that he thought the pool wasn't up to world records and nobody would break any world records, and the pool was useless. And then of course Ian does what Ian does and goes out on night one and sets a world record that stood for ages. So be careful what you wish for, I guess, when he's concerned.
I think part of that too was a little gamesmanship in terms of like taking some pressure off a guy like Thorpe, because people were always expecting world records, and so I think what he was doing there was kind of, and it makes sense now as a coach, to do something like that, to just pull back on the media expectations a little bit of like let's just enjoy the performances, and what come will come. And so then you do get a guy like Thorpe who goes and does that, and you think to yourself, wow, he must be really special if he can do it in that crappy pool. But no, it was a very good pool. It was a great place to race in. I remember the intimacy. Like, I just felt like the crowd was right on top of you. Felt like your teammates were right there. It felt very close, as opposed to kind of some of the other pools I've been to where it feels very open, and this one felt very intimate.
Well, let's jump forward 4 years then to the games in Melbourne in 2006. Now, you retired after that meet. Did you know going in that it was going to be your last hurrah, if you like? Yeah, I really did at that stage. I was 31 years old at that point, and I think there was like a 15-year-old girl on the team. It was like I was 31 and one of my teammates was half my age, kind of thing. So it was like I just lost interest. I wasn't injured. I wasn't necessarily getting slower. I think back then we didn't have aging athletes at that point. I think Mark Foster and people like that were pushing the boundaries, but it wasn't more. It's more of a commonplace now that 31-year-olds are in the sport for sure. There was more money too. But it was just really more of a time thing. Like, okay, I've been doing this for a while now. Like, that's enough. And so I did know that, and I think that kind of affected my performances a little bit. Like I went in a little less hungry. Actually, you would think that you'd go in hungry with that mentality, but I actually went in a little bit less hungry. Of like, I just want to enjoy the moment rather than I'm going there to win this gold medal kind of thing. So, in looking back, I don't know if it was the right mentality or not, but I'm glad I really took it all in. I soaked it all in. I just really enjoyed the experience. And were you still training in Melbourne at that point? Because obviously it would have been your home pool as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it was definitely my home pool. We actually were training in the pool that was a little bit older, that was indoors. We would train in that facility, but we watched this facility get built. Basically, while we're training, they're building this thing in front of our eyes. So that part of it was super cool to watch this thing, kind of take shape and then be the first people to perform in it. It was really exciting for that point, Yeah. Now, we've spoken, you've said, your piece about how good that team was, that era of Australian men's swimming. But, you were without Grant Hackett for that meet because he had a shoulder injury and an operation, I think. And then just before, Ian Thorpe, who we'd not seen since Athens, pulled out as well. Did that have any kind of impact on the atmosphere in the team? Because he's a superstar, he'd be a loss to any team. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it did feel weird. Like those guys were just kind of the part of the fabric of the team, and for them to pull out, it did feel different. And there was a kind of a changing of the guard. It felt like even on the women's side, there was some people that just weren't there anymore. So it did feel like a younger team. It felt like a new direction in a way. And that's kind of added to the part of where I felt like, it's time for me to move on here because, that's my group, and my group's kind of like moving on. This younger generation's coming through. So it felt like a changing of the guard in a way, yeah. And you said you were going there maybe a little less hungry, but has your preparation been good? I mean, were you going there still with expectations to get on the podium?
Yeah, I think I was still expecting to win. I felt like the training was really good, and I was hoping that that would show. Actually, I felt like the training was very good, and it was actually the first time that I'd actually qualified for the relay. So at the age of 31, I swam my best 100 freestyle at the trials and qualified for the relay team, which I'd never done before. So it was like really absurd that all of a sudden at the end of my career, this 100 freestyle was coming on, and to be part of this team and really feel welcomed by my good friend Michael Klim, and Eamon Sullivan was in that relay, and we kind of really bonded around that relay, and so that part of it was super special and exciting for me, and that kind of made it a little bit different of like being part of this relay team for the first time.
And that was your swim, your chance to get in and have a race before your individual 53. But I'm got a recollection that maybe it didn't all go smoothly for that relay in terms of getting ready beforehand.
Yeah, it was another one of those experiences again. Like I had this experience in 2002 where something so bizarre happened, and then I go to the Athens Olympics, I go to World Championships, I go to Pan Pacs, nothing. And then 4 years later, I come to this Commonwealth Games, and something bizarre happens again. So I'm getting ready for this relay. Michael Klim and I are roommates. And, you have your nap before you kind of go to the pool at night. You have your lunch, you have a nap, you kind of get up, and then you go to the pool together to get ready for the final. And so I had my nap and decided I needed to have a kind of a wake-up shower. So I go into the shower, and it's kind of a community shower. You have people from, all the different rooms kind of sharing showers. So I went in there, and there was just a bunch of open bottles, for shampoo. And for whatever reason, I decided to use someone's shampoo, and as I'm in the shower, I could feel my skin starting to burn, and I thought to myself, like, what's going on? So I get out of the shower, and I break out in this rash, like a heat rash, but not only is it just kind of in one spot, it's like all over my body. My body starts to swell up, and I come outside, and Michael's like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. I just used someone's shampoo." Now, looking back, I don't know if I was having some sort of physical reaction to the thought of maybe this is my last meet, this is the first time I'm going to be on this relay, the weight of the expectations. Maybe it was something mental. I put it down to something, like maybe I was allergic to something in the shower because it happened kind of quickly. And I didn't feel necessarily stressed, but who knows, man? The human body is incredible, and the human mind is very, very powerful. And I don't know subconsciously if I was just, if it was a stress reaction. But I do know that they took me down to the medical clinic, and they immediately said, "We've got to give him an adrenaline shot. Like he's going to, something serious is going on here." So they give me an adrenaline shot, and nothing really happens. And then they say, "Well, we've got to give you another adrenaline shot." So they give me 2. And then I say to them, "Well, that's great, but I got to go race now." And they're like, "Oh, no, you can't race. You just had 2 adrenaline shots." I'm like, "I'm racing in an hour, and nothing's going to stop me." Okay? And so they kind of had this little side meeting with the doctors and the team managers, and, the relay team is gone. They're at the pool warming up, and I'm there by myself. And so then they come back and they say, "All right, we agree that you can race on your own. You have to sign a waiver to say that you've agreed, you're doing this on your own, but you're not allowed to warm up. You can't do a warm up. Your heart rate's already at 220 again. I'm back to this again." And then they said it's just too risky to do a warm up. So I actually had to go to the pool and just sit and relax, put my suit on, get up on the block, and perform without touching the water, without doing anything. But my heart rate, because of the adrenaline that was going through my body, my heart rate was... and so I'm thinking to myself, as I'm going down the first 50, like, is my heart going to explode? Like, what's going to happen here? Like, I really, truly didn't fully... I was worried. But I was like, you know what, just do it. And so at the end of the race, I think I split like 49.6 or something like that. And I thought to myself, oh, man, that was easy. Like, I wish I had really emptied the tank there. Like I felt the most amazing 100 freestyle of my life. and I felt like I held back, because of this whole thing where I felt like my heart was going to explode. I thought, man, I really could have gone faster there. So I was kind of pissed at myself that I didn't.
Well, you picked up the silver there, obviously behind the South Africans, who were the Olympic champions at the time. So a good result, probably most people would say. But you must, by this point, with your 50 to come, you must be thinking you're cursed for Commonwealth Games. What else is going to go wrong in my 50?
I actually did think that. Yeah, I was like, there must be a curse. What's going on here? And then I just thought to myself, oh well, the time's right. It's time to bow out. So I actually swam a really good 50. I felt great about it. I just didn't feel like things were clicking like they were in 2002. I just didn't feel the same. Like I wasn't as poppy in the water. I wasn't, I just didn't have it, like something was missing. Even though I got on the podium, I think I got the bronze medal. I think it was, maybe, did Roland win again?
Yeah, Roland took the gold and Brent Hayden
Roland won
in
again and then Brent Hayden. Yeah, a young Brent Hayden kind of came through and snatched the silver off me, and I was lucky enough to get the bronze, and I thought, oh, that's a pretty good result the way I was feeling. I wasn't feeling great, so I was happy to get the bronze at that stage.
So, I mean, that would have been your last swim, your last competitive swim. You're happy that was the way, that your career came to an end?
Yeah, honestly, it was within 2 years that I go back to the Olympics with a young man by the name of Cesar Cielo, and we win gold medal together. And I thought to myself, geez, I'm glad I'm not racing this guy. I'm glad I didn't hang around for another 2 years and try and take on Cesar Cielo, because he would have beat the hell out of me. So I'm glad I took him to the Olympics and was able to use all my experiences to kind of guide him into his performance. But yeah, at that stage I felt like I made the right decision. Like, man, I got out at the right time, because there was a young crop of sprinters coming through that were just deadly, and bigger than me, stronger than me, hungrier. And it was like, that was definitely the right time, yeah. And,
I was in Melbourne for those games, and a lot of the talk that I can remember around the place in the media and what have you, is because the men's team for Australia weren't having the greatest meet overall. Coming to the last day, hadn't won any gold medals. A few smash and grabs from some Scots like David Carey and Ryan Pinney and the fly and things like that. People that you wouldn't necessarily have expected to win. Do you remember that kind of affecting the team? That kind of pressure, or that feeling of underperformance is not the right word, but not living up to expectations in a home games.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I felt like we were missing some superstars. It was a young team, and we didn't have that level. I wasn't a superstar. I was a strong member of the Australian team, but I wasn't a superstar. And I think that's where you rely on your Michael Phelpses to go in and grab 6 or 7 gold medals. Your Ian Thorpes, those people who were just your superstars, and we just knew we didn't have that. So we never really felt like we underperformed. We felt like we performed kind of to our level, but we were missing the guys that were just so good that no one could beat them, and we just didn't have that.
No, I mean, history will show that the team in the medley relay went out and smashed it on the last day and got that gold medal anyway, so finished on a high. But is there anything else that stands out in your memory from the pool?
No, not really. I mean, again, it was just those two kind of experiences that I had personally that stick out in my memory. But I just remember competing with Michael Klim, and that being really special for me. Like, I remember walking around the pool during the medal ceremony for the relay and thinking to myself, like, that's the guy that won the gold medal in Sydney, like, that's the guy that broke the world record in the 100 free. Like, he's my buddy, he's my teammate. Like, I remember putting my arm around him, and I've got a couple of photos of it that are really special to me, like us walking around the pool deck for that, freestyle relay, and feeling like, man, I finally made it. Like, I had dreamed of being on that relay from, when the Mean Machine back in the 80s, and here I am at the end of my career walking around the pool deck with Michael Klim. I mean, to me, that's a memory that'll just never disappear. It was very, very special.
Well, I think that's an excellent place to draw a line under this set of reminiscences. Brett, thanks very much for sharing. Really loved hearing your recollections and discovering the curse of the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks to Brett for sharing his memories. Always great to get a different perspective on things, and the Australian one certainly very interesting. I'll be back with some more Commonwealth Games memories on the next edition. Follow me on Twitter at Pullbuoy or Instagram at Pullbuoy UK if you want to find out when the next one drops. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please do leave us a review. Back soon with the next one, but in the meantime, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Pullbuoy podcast. For more episodes, visit www.pullbuoy.co.uk/podcast.